The little girl's small frame trembled as tears streamed down her face, her tiny hands clutching at the cold, unwelcoming bowl of dog food in front of her. Her stomach ached with hunger, but worse than that was the ache in her heart. Knowing she was being punished, abandoned, discarded like a stray. She begged softly, voice trembling, "Please, I can't eat this. I'm hungry, please." But her stepmother's cruel laugh echoed in her ears, dismissing her pleas as if they were nothing more than noise. Her cheeks were streaked with tears, her voice cracking as she begged again, "Please, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to do anything wrong. Please, don't make me do this." But her stepmother's eyes were cold, unseeing, as she shoved the bowl closer, her voice sharp and merciless. "Eat it, or go hungry. You deserve nothing better." The cruel words cut deeper than any slap, and the girl's trembling hands reluctantly reached out, her fingers trembling as she pushed the food into her mouth. The taste was bitter, the texture coarse, nothing like the warm, comforting meals she craved. Her stomach churned, but she swallowed it anyway, tears finally spilling over as she felt the humiliation and despair swallowing her whole. She looked around desperately, hoping for help, for someone to save her from this nightmare. But the room was empty, silent except for her ragged breathing and the faint whisper of her own sobs. Her tiny frame curled into itself as she tried to block out the ache, hunger, shame, and the terror of being completely abandoned. Every second felt like an eternity, each bite a reminder that she was nothing but a burden, a disgrace in the eyes of the woman who was supposed to love her. Her voice broke completely now, a raw cry of despair. "Please, I can't take this anymore. I'm starving. I just want to go home." Her tiny hands clutched her stomach as the pain intensified, her body weak from hunger and fear. Her eyes fluttered closed, wishing she could disappear, vanish from this cruel world where love was replaced by cruelty. Each sob racked her small frame, her body trembling uncontrollably, as if the very air around her mocked her misery. She begged silently, praying for a miracle, for someone to come and rescue her from the nightmare she was living. Suddenly, a quiet, gentle presence entered the room, a warm light that seemed to glow from within, casting away the shadows of darkness and despair. The little girl's tear-streaked face lifted, her trembling hands still clutching at her stomach. She looked into the light, hope flickering in her eyes for the first time in what felt like forever. A voice, soft yet powerful, echoed through the room, filling it with a sense of peace and unwavering love. "Stop crying, my child," it said. "I am here." In that moment, everything changed. The oppressive weight of cruelty lifted, replaced by a divine presence that radiated compassion and mercy. The stepmother's cold eyes widened in shock as the light intensified, blinding in its purity. The girl's trembling subsided as she felt warmth seep into her bones, healing her wounds, both physical and spiritual. Tears of relief replaced tears of pain, and for the first time in a long while, she believed that her suffering was about to end, because something greater was about to happen. The little girl's journey to this moment had been paved with neglect, broken promises, and a deep sense of abandonment that no child should ever endure. She had once known love, warm, gentle, unbreakable, but that was before her life was twisted by the cold hands of injustice. Her mother had passed away when she was just a toddler, leaving her fragile heart to be pieced back together by a series of indifferent adults. Her father, a distant man caught in his own world of work and distraction, rarely noticed her tears or listened to her whispered fears. Instead, she was left to navigate life with a sense of loneliness that grew heavier each day. Soon after her mother's death, her father remarried a woman whose kindness was a mask hiding her true cruelty. The stepmother, with her icy eyes and sharp tongue, saw the girl not as a child to protect and nurture, but as a burden, an obstacle to her own comfort. From the moment she entered their home, the girl felt the cold grip of neglect tightening around her. Her stepmother's expectations were cruelly high, She was expected to behave perfectly, to excel in everything, yet she was rarely given love or patience when she faltered. Instead, she was scolded, ignored, pushed aside like a piece of clutter that no longer served a purpose. Her stepfather, a man caught between his own apathy and the fear of confrontation, often turned a blind eye. He would mutter dismissively when she tried to speak up about her hunger or loneliness, telling her to be quiet or that she was overreacting. The girl's world shrank smaller with each passing day, her small voice swallowed by the silence of indifference. She was often left hungry, her stomach aching from lack of proper food, yet her stepmother would dismiss her complaints with cold words or outright cruelty. When she cried or begged for something to eat, her pleas were met with sneers or silence, as if her suffering was nothing more than an inconvenience. On one particularly harsh day, her stepmother decided to punish her for an imagined misstep, perhaps for accidentally breaking a dish or for simply existing too loudly. Without warning, she was forced to sit at the table, where a bowl of dog food was placed before her as if it were a meal fit for a child. The girl's heart shattered at the sight, her eyes filling with tears as she looked at what was supposed to be her punishment. She begged her stepmother to reconsider, her voice trembling with fear and desperation. "Please, I can't. I don't want to eat this. I'm starving, not a dog," she whispered, choking on her tears. But her stepmother's face remained cold, her voice dismissive and cruel. "Eat it," she snapped. "You're not special. You're just a burden. If you're too weak to eat, then maybe you don't deserve anything better." The girl's small hands trembled as she reached out, hesitating for a moment before pushing the food into her mouth. The taste was bitter, the texture coarse, and her stomach twisted in protest. Each bite was an assault on her dignity, a reminder of how little she was valued, how little she mattered in this world. Her cries grew louder, her voice cracking as she begged for mercy, for someone to see her suffering. "Please, I'm hungry. Please don't make me do this. I want to go home," she whispered, her voice barely audible over her sobs. But her words fell on deaf ears, her pleas ignored by the adults around her, who seemed more interested in their own comfort than the pain of a helpless child. She felt utterly abandoned, alone in her misery, forgotten by everyone who was supposed to protect her. As she sat there, trembling and crying, her small heart breaking into pieces, she felt the weight of injustice crushing her spirit. How could the people who were supposed to love her treat her this way? How could they turn their backs on her, leaving her to suffer in silence and hunger? Her innocence was being stolen, her trust shattered, and her hope fading with each cruel moment. But in the midst of her despair, a flicker of something greater was about to enter her life, a light in the darkness that would change everything. A divine presence, gentle yet powerful, was about to appear and break through the shadows of cruelty and neglect. The little girl's trembling hands and tear-streaked face were about to be touched by a love far greater than any she had known before, a love that would remind her she was not alone, that she was precious beyond measure. And in that moment, hope was about to be reborn. Every day, the little girl's life was a relentless series of broken promises and cruel acts that left her trembling with fear and despair. She was often thrown out of the house like trash, her tiny frame shivering in the cold, as her stepmother yelled insults that cut her deeper than any physical blow. "Get out! You're useless, just like your mother's failure," her stepmother sneered, shoving her harshly toward the door. The girl's small hands clutched her coat tightly as she stumbled outside into the biting wind, feeling more abandoned than ever, her tears freezing on her cheeks. There was no comfort, no warmth, only the echo of her stepmother's mocking voice ringing in her ears, reminding her she was nothing, a burden to everyone around her. When she finally managed to sneak back inside, starving and trembling, her stepmother's cruelty only worsened. She was denied food again. Despite her stomach aching painfully, she was told she didn't deserve a proper meal. Instead, her stepmother shoved a bowl of dog food across the table, sneering, Eat this. You're not worth anything more. The girl's eyes widened in horror as she looked at the coarse, unappetizing dish, her heart pounding in her chest. She begged, trembling, "Please, I can't eat this. I'm hungry. I need real food." But her pleas were met with a slap across the face, her stepmother's voice cold as ice. "You're not a child. You're just a useless little beast," she spat, forcing the bowl closer. With tears streaming down her face, the girl pushed the food into her mouth, tasting bitterness and shame. Each bite felt like a punishment, a reminder that she was nothing but a worthless object to be discarded and humiliated. The insults didn't stop there. One day, after she had cried herself to sleep, her stepmother woke her abruptly with a vicious kick to the side. "Get up, lazy girl," she snapped. "You're too slow. You're stupid and ungrateful. Maybe I should just throw you away like trash." The girl's small body curled into itself as her stepmother's words pierced her heart. She was beaten, slapped, pushed, and called every cruel name imaginable, until she couldn't tell where the pain ended and her tears began. Each blow left her trembling, more broken than before, feeling hopeless and trapped in a nightmare she couldn't escape. Things only got worse. One evening, her stepfather, who rarely intervened, entered the room, looking tired and indifferent. Without a word, he grabbed her roughly by the arm and threw her out into the yard in the pouring rain, leaving her shivering on the cold ground. "Maybe if you freeze out here, you'll learn your place," he muttered dismissively, closing the door behind her. The girl's sobs echoed in the empty yard, her small frame soaked and trembling. She called out for help, for someone to save her, but no one answered. Her voice was swallowed by the storm, her suffering ignored as she was left to face the night alone. Inside, her stepmother's cruelty only escalated. She poured cold water over the girl's head while she was sleeping, waking her with a shriek. "You filthy, dirty little creature," she spat, then dragged her outside again, this time to stand in the mud. "You're not even worth cleaning up. You're just a worthless burden," she sneered. The girl's clothes were torn, her skin scraped from the rough ground, and her tears mixed with the mud as she begged for mercy. But her words only angered her tormentors more. They insulted her, called her disgusting, useless, and unlovable. Each insult more vicious than the last, each one chipping away at her fragile hope. She was trapped in a nightmare where escape seemed impossible, each day worse than the last. Her suffering was relentless, a never-ending cycle of rejection, humiliation, and pain. No matter how much she cried or begged, no one listened. Her innocence was being stolen piece by piece, her spirit crushed beneath the weight of injustice and neglect. It felt like she was drowning in an endless sea of cruelty, with no land in sight. No rescue, no relief, only the harsh reality that she was completely alone. But just as her world seemed to crumble entirely, a gentle light began to pierce through the darkness. A divine presence, full of love and mercy, was about to enter her life, something far greater than any hurt she had ever known. And in that moment, her suffering was about to take a turn, because help was coming, and hope was about to be reborn. The little girl's body trembled uncontrollably as she collapsed onto the cold, muddy street, her tiny frame shivering from the biting wind and the relentless ache of hunger that gnawed at her insides. Her cheeks were streaked with tears, her breath coming in ragged gasps as exhaustion overtook her. She had tried to stand, to walk back home, but her legs gave out beneath her, and she sank to her knees, clutching her stomach in a desperate attempt to silence its wailing. Her vision blurred, and her eyelids fluttered as faintness threatened to swallow her whole. She cried out softly, voice trembling, "Please, someone, please help me." But only the echo of her own voice answered her, swallowed by the emptiness of the street. The shadows stretched long across the pavement, and the flickering, distant glow of streetlights seemed to mock her helplessness. Her trembling hands clutched tightly to her chest, trying to hold herself together, but her strength was ebbing away. Her body was a fragile, broken thing, exhausted from days of neglect and abuse. Her clothes, torn and muddy, clung to her trembling frame as she curled into a trembling ball, tears streaming down her face, mixing with the dirt and rain. Her mind raced with memories of the relentless cruelty. The cruel words, the harsh blows, the days she was refused even the tiniest morsel of food. Her stomach clenched painfully, the hunger so fierce it felt like a physical beast gnawing at her insides. She had begged and pleaded, but no one had come. Her voice was hoarse and raw, her plea fading into a whisper. "Please, I can't take it anymore." Her voice cracked as she tried to call for help, but the only answer was the cold silence of the empty street. Her body shivered uncontrollably, her teeth chattering as the cold seeped into her bones. Her eyelids fluttered closed for a moment, and she almost thought she might drift away, just fade into nothingness to escape the pain. But she couldn't stop trembling, her trembling hands clutching at her stomach, desperate for relief. Her cheeks were streaked with tears, her face pale and exhausted, and her small frame felt impossibly fragile, like she might break apart at any second. Her breath grew shallow, her vision fading in and out, as her body fought to stay conscious amidst the overwhelming exhaustion and hunger. Was this how it was supposed to end? All her suffering, her tears, her pleas. Was no one going to hear her? Did anyone care? The question hung heavy in the air as she lay there, helpless and alone, her body trembling in the cold rain. Her eyes fluttered open one last time, searching desperately for a sign of help, a voice, a presence. Anything to save her from this nightmare. But the street remained silent, the shadows stretching farther as if mocking her misery. Her small hands unclenched, and her fingers curled into a weak, trembling fist. Her eyelids drooped, her breathing slowing, and her body finally relaxed into the cold pavement. The world seemed to hold its breath, waiting, hoping, for rescue that never came. And in her final moments of trembling silence, she whispered softly into the darkness, "Please, someone, please, don't leave me alone." Her voice faded into nothingness, her small body still and broken on the street. The pain, the hunger, the cold, all of it had reached its cruel peak. Yet, just as the darkness threatened to swallow her entirely, a gentle glow broke through the shadows, a divine light shining down on her fragile form. The moment of her greatest suffering was about to be interrupted by something far greater than cruelty, something filled with mercy, love, and hope. The girl's trembling body lay sprawled across the cold, muddy street, her small hands clutching her stomach as if holding herself together. Tears streamed silently down her dirt-streaked face, soaking into her trembling lips and chapped cheeks. Her breath came in shallow, uneven gasps, each inhale painfully shallow from exhaustion and hunger that had gnawed at her for days. The ache in her belly was a relentless, gnawing pain, but even more overwhelming was the weight in her heart, an unshakable feeling of helplessness, abandonment, and deep despair. She had no strength left to cry out or scream. Her voice had been worn away by days of pleading, begging, and silent suffering. Her eyes, wide and glassy, stared upward at the gray, cloud-covered sky, searching desperately for something. Any sign of mercy or hope. Her gaze was fixed, unwavering, as if she was trying to reach beyond the darkness that had consumed her life, reaching for a glimmer of light. Her lips moved softly, whispering a prayer she had repeated in her mind countless times. Words of pleading, of hope, of desperate faith. "Please, please, I need help. I can't do this anymore." Her voice, barely more than a breath, faded into the quiet air, lost amidst the stillness of the empty street. Her tears continued to fall silently, each one a testament to her pain, an outward expression of the suffering she could no longer voice aloud. The world around her seemed to hold its breath, as if waiting for the inevitable end. The cold wind brushed her damp hair, and the rain began to fall softly, droplets mingling with her tears, nature's quiet lament echoing her own silent grief. For a moment, everything seemed to stand still. The darkness pressed in on her, heavy and unrelenting. Her small body, exhausted beyond measure, felt as if it was dissolving into the shadows. Her eyes fluttered closed, her mind slipping into a fragile, trembling silence. Her prayer was faint now, just a whisper carried by the wind, a fragile hope fading into the void. Her fingers loosened from her stomach, falling limply to the ground, as if surrendering to the inevitable. Her chest rose and fell slowly, her breathing shallow, almost imperceptible. The silence stretched longer, a dramatic pause heavy with unspoken pain and longing. It was as if time itself had stopped, holding her in a suspended moment where nothing existed but her fragile form and the quiet despair that enveloped her. The sky darkened further, clouds swirling in a silent storm of grief and anticipation. The girl's eyes remained closed, her face peaceful in that small moment of surrender, peaceful in her pain, surrendering to whatever fate awaited her. Her entire being seemed to whisper a final plea, an unspoken cry for salvation, for a miracle, for a sign that she was not forgotten. Her trembling fingers, her fragile body, her silent tears, everything about her spoke of a silent, desperate hope that someone, something, would come to save her from this nightmare. The silence loomed, thick and heavy, a silent countdown to the unknown. Her heart beat faintly within her chest, a soft, fragile rhythm that seemed to echo her own fragile hope. And just as the darkness threatened to consume her entirely, a sudden, gentle light pierced through the gloom, a divine glow that illuminated her small, trembling figure. The atmosphere shifted, the air thick with anticipation and awe. The moment of her greatest despair was about to be broken by something extraordinary, by a presence that would change everything. A light so pure, so compassionate, that it seemed to carry the very essence of hope. The scene held its breath, waiting for what was to come, as the child remained in her silent surrender, gazing at the sky, whispering her prayer into the vast, awaiting universe, her final plea before the miracle of the unexpected entrance. In that quiet, heavy moment of silence, as the girl's trembling form lay still on the cold, muddy ground, the world seemed to hold its breath. The dark clouds above swirled silently, and the rain still fell softly, mingling with her tears, washing over her pain but offering no relief. Her whisper of a prayer drifted into the wind like a fragile leaf carried away by the storm of despair that had consumed her. It was as if time itself paused, waiting for a sign, a glimmer of hope to pierce through the darkness that had become her world. Suddenly, a gentle, radiant light began to break through the heavy clouds, illuminating the dim sky with a warmth that seemed almost divine. The air around her thickened with a sense of peace, as if the heavens themselves had shifted to answer her silent plea. The light grew brighter, not blinding but soothing, like a comforting embrace wrapping her in a cocoon of divine love. It was as if heaven had opened its gates, and a presence, so pure, so full of compassion, was approaching. The atmosphere shifted entirely. The heavy rain softened into a gentle drizzle, and the clouds parted just enough to reveal a figure emerging from the brightness. It was Jesus, his face serene, his eyes filled with unconditional love and mercy. He moved with a calm, gentle grace, each step resonating with purpose and compassion. As he drew closer, the girl's eyes fluttered open slightly, her exhausted gaze meeting the radiant figure approaching her. In that moment, everything changed. Jesus knelt beside her, his presence so gentle that it seemed to quiet even the storm within her soul. He reached out his hand, tender and reassuring, and softly brushed her damp hair away from her face. His voice, warm and soothing, broke through the silent despair that had weighed her down for so long. "My child," he whispered softly, "you are not alone. I am here." His words were like a balm, soothing the ache in her heart and the pain in her body, filling her with an unexplainable peace. As he gently lifted her into his arms, the suffering and humiliation she had endured seemed to melt away, replaced by a profound sense of comfort and hope. The darkness that had threatened to swallow her was driven back by the light of his presence. In that sacred moment, the despair that had held her captive was replaced by a divine assurance. Everything was about to change. Her trembling fingers clung to his robes as if anchoring her to hope itself. The crowd that surrounded her, those who had witnessed her suffering, began to feel a deep stirring of emotion. Many had watched her broken and hopeless, their hearts heavy with compassion. But now, as Jesus appeared, a wave of relief washed over everyone, a collective breath of relief and awe. They saw in his eyes the promise of redemption, the assurance that love and mercy could triumph over cruelty and despair. His presence was a declaration that suffering was not the end, that hope was never lost, and that divine grace could pierce even the darkest nights. Jesus looked down at her with a gentle smile, his eyes shining with mercy and tenderness. "You are precious," he said softly. "No matter what you've endured, my love for you is greater than all the pain in the world." His words sank deep into her heart, filling her with warmth and a renewed sense of worth she had never known. In that sacred moment, everything felt different. The pain, the humiliation, the loneliness. All of it faded into the background, replaced by the overwhelming truth that she was loved beyond measure. The divine light surrounding Jesus seemed to envelop her, whispering promises of healing, restoration, and new beginnings. The sky, now clearing, reflected the hope that had been reborn within her soul. The audience, witnessing this miraculous arrival, felt their own hearts open to the profound power of love and compassion. Tears streamed down some faces. Others simply stood in silent awe, overwhelmed by the beauty of divine mercy in action. It was a moment of profound relief, a turning point, a reminder that even in the darkest despair, hope can arrive when least expected. And as Jesus gently carried her away from her suffering, the girl's silent tears turned into quiet smiles, her heart filled with gratitude, her spirit lifted by the knowledge that she was seen, loved, and rescued. The divine answer to her suffering had arrived, wrapping her in the peace, comfort, and hope that only Jesus could bring. In that instant, everything was different. Her pain was transformed into joy, her despair into hope, and her silent prayer was answered in the most miraculous way imaginable. As Jesus gently lifted the girl into his arms, a profound silence fell over the scene. The dark clouds parted even further, letting rays of golden light spill down like a divine waterfall, illuminating everything around her. The rain slowed, then stopped altogether, as if nature itself was pausing in reverence. The girl looked up, her eyes wide with awe and a flicker of newfound hope. She felt a warmth spreading from his embrace, a strength she had never known before. In that moment, everything changed. Her trembling body, once overwhelmed by despair, now felt a flicker of resilience, a spark of courage ignited by his divine presence. She clung to him, feeling protected and loved, as if nothing in the world could harm her now. The weight of humiliation, hunger, and loneliness seemed to lift, replaced by a quiet assurance that she was safe. Meanwhile, behind her, the cruel adults who had inflicted such suffering, her stepmother and the others who had watched her broken and trembling, began to react. Their faces, once filled with cruelty and indifference, now shifted into expressions of shock and disbelief. Their eyes widened, mouths parted in silent astonishment. They had expected her to crumble or break completely, to be forever lost in her suffering. But instead, they saw her standing tall, embraced by a figure radiating divine compassion. The stepmother's lips trembled, her hands trembling at her sides, as if she wanted to speak but couldn't find the words. Her face flushed with shame, and for the first time, the cruel mask she had worn so proudly cracked open, revealing a flicker of remorse, or perhaps the dawning realization of how powerless she truly was in the face of divine mercy. The other adults around her, who had silently judged and dismissed her, looked on in stunned silence. They saw the girl's trembling frame transform, not into a defeated shadow, but into someone filled with strength and hope. The shame deepened in their eyes as they recognized that their cruelty had been exposed, that their actions had been nothing compared to the divine love now standing before them. They had tried to break her spirit, but Jesus' presence had shattered their power and revealed the true resilience of a heart touched by grace. Their silence was deafening, a testament to how profoundly they had underestimated the power of compassion and divine intervention. For the girl, the moment was a turning point. Her silent tears of pain and humiliation began to dry, replaced by a quiet, inner strength. She felt a surge of hope coursing through her, a reassurance that her suffering had not been in vain. It had awakened something deeper, an unshakable faith that love could conquer even the cruelest cruelty. Jesus' protection was like a shield around her, a divine armor that no harm could penetrate. Her trembling lips formed a faint smile, a symbol of her renewed spirit, a silent declaration that she was no longer a victim but a survivor, a child of divine love. In the crowd, a wave of relief washed over those who had witnessed the scene. The silence that had fallen was finally broken by quiet whispers of awe and admiration. Many looked at her now with a new understanding, seeing her not as a helpless victim, but as a child empowered by divine grace. The shame that had clouded the faces of her tormentors deepened into remorse, as they realized how their cruelty paled in comparison to the mercy and strength Jesus' presence had brought. They had judged her, dismissed her suffering, and thought she would be broken forever. But now, they saw that through divine intervention, she had found courage, comfort, and protection. Proof that suffering, no matter how deep, is never in vain when touched by genuine love and mercy. The divine presence of Jesus had silenced hatred and cruelty, replaced shame with humility, and awakened hope in the deepest corners of the girl's heart. Her pain was still there, but it no longer defined her. Instead, she carried within her a new sense of purpose and resilience, a quiet, unbreakable strength born from divine love. The world had tried to silence her, to break her spirit, but Jesus' arrival had spoken louder than any cruelty. It had proven that no darkness is too great when divine light and mercy are present. That moment, filled with awe and transformation, proved that her suffering was not in vain. It was a testament to the power of love, hope, and divine grace, something that changed everything, forever. As Jesus gently held her, the girl's trembling body began to settle. The divine light surrounding him seemed to wrap her in a warm, comforting embrace, pushing back the darkness that had haunted her for so long. The rain had stopped entirely now, and a soft, golden glow bathed everything in a peaceful radiance. The storm clouds had parted, revealing a clear sky sprinkled with shimmering stars, as if the heavens themselves celebrated this moment of hope and renewal. Slowly, the girl's tears dried, replaced by a calm, peaceful expression. Her eyes, once filled with fear and despair, now reflected a gentle serenity. Her small hands, which had clenched tightly in pain and humiliation, relaxed into a restful stillness. She looked up at Jesus with a quiet trust, as if sensing that she was finally safe. Jesus' presence had transformed her, not just physically, but deep within her spirit. Her shoulders, once hunched from the weight of suffering, now stood a little taller. Her face, still delicate and young, shimmered with a newfound light, one born of love and hope. She was no longer a broken girl but a child restored, wrapped in divine grace that whispered to her soul that she was precious beyond measure. In the distance, the cruel adults who had inflicted her pain, her stepmother and others, stood silent, overwhelmed by the power of what they had just witnessed. Their eyes were wide with shock, their faces flushed with shame. They had thought her broken forever, but now, they saw her standing tall, peaceful, and full of a quiet strength. The harshness in their hearts was challenged by the mercy that Jesus had shown. They had tried to humiliate her, to destroy her spirit, but they had been powerless in the face of divine love. Their mouths opened slightly, but no words came out. Only a silent acknowledgement of their own shortcomings. They felt a deep sense of shame, realizing that cruelty had no place in the face of true compassion. For the girl, the moment of transformation was complete. Her silent tears had turned into a gentle smile, a symbol of her inner peace. Her heart, once weighed down by sadness and fear, now beat with hope and resilience. She felt a quiet gratitude in her soul, gratitude for the love that Jesus had shown her and for the strength she now carried within. She was safe, restored, and at peace, knowing she was cherished by a divine presence that would never leave her side. Her face radiated a calm that seemed to glow from inside, a testament to the healing power of love and mercy. She looked at Jesus with a gentle gaze, her spirit renewed, her faith strengthened. She knew her suffering had not been in vain. It had led her to this moment of divine grace. And as Jesus prepared to leave, he looked back at her with a tender smile. His voice, soft but filled with unwavering love, echoed in her heart. "Remember, my child," he said, "you are never alone. My love is always with you, guiding you through every darkness and into every new dawn." His words planted seeds of hope deep within her, a reminder that no matter how hard life may seem, love can transform even the greatest pain into new strength. As Jesus's figure slowly disappeared into the sky, the girl remained in her peaceful state, feeling the warmth of his love surrounding her. The world around her was quiet now, yet filled with a renewed sense of hope. She was a living proof that even the deepest suffering can be met with divine compassion. A reminder that love, mercy, and hope are powerful enough to heal wounds that seem impossible to mend. Now, I invite you to reflect. Do you also recognize Jesus' presence in your darkest moments? Have you felt his love guiding you through your struggles, even when it seems like no one else is there? Remember, no matter how lonely or painful life may feel, divine love is always near, ready to restore, to comfort, and to give you strength. The question is, are you open to seeing his presence in your own life? Will you allow his love to heal your wounds and guide your steps? Because, just like this girl, you are cherished beyond measure, and hope is never truly lost.